Hey there, Deluxe fans! Hope you're feeling exceptionally magical today. When we saw Pixar's Lightyear, we could not have been happier to see Buzz facing off against his oldest rival, Zurg. By now, you probably know the big spoiler of the movie, and if you don't, here it is. We find out that Zurg was actually an older version of Buzz who was obsessed with fixing the mistake he made years ago. Many fans were shocked when they revealed this in the movie. Even Buzz himself was taken aback. It was quite the setup for Zurg and his origin story, one that was quite different from anything we had received from Pixar in the past. But crazy enough, this might not be the whole story. In fact, there's actually a few hidden details in the film that suggest that the older version of Buzz was, in fact, not the real Zurg. Well, at least not at first. Yup, you heard that right. Today, we are going to be discussing a theory that surrounds the possibility that Buzz was not really Zurg, but actually an imposter who stole the real Zurg's army and spacesuit. In Lightyear, we were introduced to a whole bunch of new characters and space rangers that we hadn't seen before in the Pixar universe. Two returning, or at least familiar faces, however, were Buzz Lightyear and his arch-nemesis Zurg. Only this time, we got a whole new backstory for the evil villain. Toward the back half of Lightyear, it was revealed to Buzz and us in the audience that Zurg was an alternate version of Buzz that had propelled himself into the future after being apprehended by Star Command on Takani Prime. And after he escaped their custody, he took a starship and accidentally propelled himself centuries into the future. It was there that Buzz apparently found an abandoned ship that he decided to check out, and inside he found a suit of armor along with an entire abandoned army of robots. He then decided to put on the armor and use this future technology to travel back in time to the point where Star Command had never landed on Takani Prime and stop the entire incident from ever happening in the first place. Only when he finally managed to go back in time, he could only jump as far back as the day that he had successfully tested the hyperspeed crystal and was about to be apprehended for going against Star Command law. This now meant that there were two Buzz Lightyears in the same timeline, and resulted in the two facing off in a battle over the safety of Star Command. During this, Buzz learned a lesson about letting go of his obsessions and living a life with those he held close. In the end, we all know that Buzz is victorious, but it was surely interesting to watch himself fight against himself. Get this though, a YouTube channel named 3C Films covered a theory that we found really interesting involving Zurg, and after hearing it, I was surprised how obvious of a theory it was and how no one had been talking about it yet. In 3C Films' video, he brings up the idea that the Zurg that we saw in Lightyear, or that the alternate version of Buzz that turned into Zurg, is actually not the real Zurg. While he may take on the Space Emperor's moniker, he is not actually the original or the real Emperor Zurg. As the person behind the theory points out in his video, and I think most people who have seen Lightyear have felt similarly, when they finally explained to us who Zurg was and how this other version of Buzz managed to become Zurg, it all seemed a bit too simple. Lightyear explained it in their movie as Buzz, after escaping custody on Takani Prime, accidentally jumped through time and propelled himself 500 years into the future. And it was there that he just happened to stumble on a ship that not only contained a robot army, but also the armor that would make him into Zurg. Then, when explaining why he chose to use the name Zurg, he claimed that it was because his robot army couldn't pronounce his real name, Buzz Lightyear, and instead called him Zurg. And while I absolutely loved Lightyear, this always seemed like a bit of a cop-out. Like they couldn't come up with a better reason for him to change his name or to go by Zurg, but this theory adds more depth to it. What if the reason that the robots are only to call the man in the armor, in this case Buzz, Zurg, is because an evil Emperor Zurg already existed and he was the one who created them in the first place? I mean, think about it. Not only would someone have had to make the armor along with this army for them to be just lost in space for Buzz to find, but it also adds up timeline-wise. I mean, Buzz shot himself hundreds of years into the future, which is way more than enough time for multiple warlords and evil space emperors to begin their attempt to reign over entire galaxies. Without this explanation, without the possibility of a former Emperor Zurg, the way that they introduced his armor seems a bit sloppy. As many fans point out, Pixar isn't known for just putting things into their movies for no reason. In fact, it's usually the opposite. They're usually known for hiding little Easter eggs in their films to hint at future projects or sequels. However, if this theory is true, if Buzz was just the newest person to sport the armor set, that would not only mean mean that he wasn't the real Emperor Zurg, but also could mean that Pixar was using this weak explanation as a way to set up a possible Lightyear 2. Since we still have to meet the original Zurg, the being that actually created that armor and his army in the first place, we think that could be where Lightyear 2 would be heading, with the real Zurg either coming into existence and Buzz having to face the true evil Space Emperor, or possibly even with the real Zurg traveling back in time to hunt down Buzz, the man who stole his armor from him, and take back what is his. This would be interesting, because when you think about it, we only know that Buzz stumbled on the abandoned army and robots because that's what he told us. But what if he wasn't being honest? What if he stole the armor from the actual Emperor Zurg and then impersonated him in order to gain control of his army? Either way, Pixar could surely use the sequel to Lightyear to flesh out their origin story for Zurg, because the idea of Buzz just finding the armor and then becoming Zurg is a bit weak and one of our only issues with the movie, and I wouldn't even really call it an issue as we still loved the movie. It just seemed a bit rushed and possibly even a bit sloppy. But if it were to turn out that they had a plan for it all along, that would make it far more interesting and understandable. It would be like them using the first Lightyear to introduce the idea of Zurg and then using the sequel to bring in the actual character, the real Emperor Zurg that Buzz is in constant arms with. That being said, if they choose to go that route, I wonder whether or not they could use any of that information that we got about Zurg from the old television series Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. I mean, most of us got our first introduction to Emperor Zurg from the 1999 Pixar sequel, Toy Story 2, but our first real look into the inner workings of Zurg's mind actually came from the Star Command TV show. Here's a quick fun fact though. Did you know that Zurg's first appearance actually came in 1998 when he was unveiled on the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin ride at Walt Disney World? That being said, the first ever mention of Zurg came from Buzz in the original Toy Story film. In the first Toy Story film, Buzz Lightyear, the action figure, warns Woody about the imminent alien invasion from the evil Emperor Zurg and how it was his mission as a member of the Universe Protection Unit to stop him. And for a while, that was all we knew about Zurg. That was until 1999 when Toy Story 2 came out, and we all got to see Zurg the action figure, who much like Buzz, was inspired by a fictional character from Andy's favorite TV show and movies. And oddly enough, I would say that the introduction of Zurg brought on more questions than it did answers. I know I wasn't the only one that was wondering for a while whether or not Zurg was actually Buzz's father or not. We can clearly tell that his character was inspired by Darth Vader, but was his storyline also inspired by him, to be at constant odds with his long-lost son, who happens to be on the opposing side? Well, I was sure thankful when Buzz Lightyear of Star Command came out, and I learned that no, that was just a ploy that Zurg used in an attempt to get the upper hand on the Space Ranger. The series also gave us more insight into what his arsenal and army were like when it came to being an evil emperor who was keen on taking over any planet that he came across. We got to see that Zurg, or his armor, has the ability to shoot laser beams out of its eyes, and he also arms himself with a triple-barrel ion cannon that seems to be his weapon of choice. On top of that, he also has the ability to fly, much like Buzz Lightyear, only instead of a jet pack, Zurg seems to have jet boots. Zurg is also shown as being a superior physical being to most humans, unless it's just his armor giving him the abilities. But he seems to be very strong and has lightning-quick reflexes. He also has gauntlets that turn into a wide variety of small weaponry and the ability to shock enemies with his grasp. Even without all of his gear and powers, Zurg would have been a force to be reckoned with because we also learned from the series that he's able to convince and corrupt even the most innocent of beings, and those he can't corrupt, he rules with an iron fist. When it comes to ruling, according to Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, Zurg got his start on the planet Z, which is located in Sector 9 of the galaxy, and though his reign spans far past the borders of his planet, it is where he resides and was born. Zurg himself claimed to come from a long line of heinous and evil rulers who had the same drive to rule the galaxy that he has, and he often referenced his family throughout the show, most specifically his Nana Zurg, who he had said was pure evil. While on planet Z, Zurg rules from the Zurg Tower, which was built for his ancestors long before he ever came into existence. But as we said, his reign spans far past planet Z. Any planet that he is able to send his army to and take over, he does without question. And if the inhabitants of the planet don't comply, he will wage war and cripple them until they don't have any other choice in the matter. One of the most important species of aliens that Zurg rules over is known as the Grubs. They are a space larva-like species that is highly intelligent and very crafty. Zurg uses them to make all of his tech, his weapons, and even his robot army, which in Star Command are referred to as Hornets. The brain pods are another important species that Zurg has been able to make work for him under the threat of annihilation. They're a race of floating brains in, you guessed it, pods, and they are typically used by Zurg as sort of scientists who are responsible for coming up with ideas, strategies, and running experiments for their evil emperor. As far as Zurg himself is concerned though, it's still unclear to us in all of Star Command exactly what species he is, and while many people believe that he is a robot, me and some other fans would have to disagree. We don't know if he would be considered human or not, but we surely believe that underneath the suit of armor is a sentient being of sorts. For the most part, that's all the information that Pixar has ever given us about Zurg, at least up until their newest film, Lightyear. And while we think that Buzz just stumbling across and taking the armor in the future and then calling himself Zurg because that's all the robots could pronounce was a bit of a weak origin, we personally don't think that Buzz was the real Zurg. Hopefully, Pixar will use Lightyear 2, if we ever get one, to give us the true origin of the evil space emperor. What do you guys think though? Did you like the way that Zurg was introduced in Lightyear? Or are you like us and hoping that Pixar gives us the real Zurg in a possible Lightyear sequel? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. As for now, that's all Disney fans. Let us know what video you'd like to see next in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.